on the greatest gift of love being to give your life for another. The most common example of this during the coronavirus times is that of doctors, nurses, priests, other religious, and others of those who give of themselves in service to the sick, as a lesson that we must take with us from these difficult times. Beyond these highly noticeable, highly compensated jobs and careers are the invisible service workers, without whom every hospital would have closed. No care could have been achieved, no blood drawn, IVs set, patients fed or bathed, turned, lifted, transferred from bed to gurney, taken to another department for testing or procedures, toileted and returned to bed, rooms cleaned, rooms sterilized for a new patient, toilets cleaned, floors swept, dry mopped, wet mopped, and on and on and on, every day, all day, and all through the night. I'm just using the people from a hospital as an example, but there are also those of the low-paying jobs, the unnoticeable, those who are invisible in grocery, in package delivery, in law enforcement. All these people gave their lives for us. In the pain and tragedy of this past year, plus, there is an important fact that grabs our attention. This fact, while adding to our pain, is nonetheless a source of admiration and ultimately of comfort. It is the host of people who bear the consequences of the coronavirus, including to death, because they have dedicated themselves generously and with all their strength to the service of others, both in body and in spirit. It is only right to offer them the tribute of collective gratitude, which is certainly not only rhetorical, but absolutely sincere. Doctors, nurses, priests, female religious, hospital porters, phlebotomists, technician specialists in the lab, IV, radiology, urology, cath lab, intensive care, CCU, respiratory support, grief counselors, and just plain old volunteers. In the worst affected areas, large numbers of these have not only fallen ill, but have given their lives. Throughout the world, 15,000 religious have died in support of the coronavirus victims. In this time of great suffering, some people know they are called by professional, religious, or personal vocation to put their lives at risk for others. If they do not shirk this call, this risk, it is not on account of carelessness or recklessness, but rather a sense of duty, animated by love, that is much stronger than this fear. Now on 11 September 2001, over 3,000 people died in that terrible attack on the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and in a field in Pennsylvania, United States. More than 300 of them were firefighters engaged in rescue operations. Their heroism was one of the most effective means of inspiring the citizens of New York in the moral and physical reconstruction that followed the devastation. And if the firefighters were the most exposed and most visible people, to them must be added the many doctors and nurses, the boat operators, and the volunteers of many kinds, who immediately came to assist with total generosity, without wasting a moment thinking of themselves. What great examples! But we could go on for a long time. How many times during earthquakes, floods, and other catastrophes, both man-made and natural, that we have witnessed wonderful movements of spontaneous, selfless solidarity that didn't stop to calculate the hardships or the risks. So it is that in times of great suffering, we see there is also great love. A love that, if it is possible, it is ready to spend without counting the cost, even to the point of giving one's life. Some are surprised. Others of us are not. We see people who have considered ordinary manifest a human and spiritual greatness that we did not realize, did not even suspect was hidden within that ordinariness. Perhaps they themselves didn't understand how much they could give until the pain of another showed up as a challenge to them and showed them what they could do when their call came. There is something very great and mysterious about this relationship between pain and love. It seems almost as if the pain is the soil where love can grow the most, to reach well beyond our predictions and expectations of others, that it can reach peaks where all reasoning and speech fail us, revealing an intense fire that burns deep in the heart. We have often seen the intense, deep love and commitment to another in the dedication of spouses and people who love another in the face of the most painful diseases, most painful terminal and disfiguring diseases. Love then becomes so intense and so great that it successfully transforms a story of unspeakable suffering into a story of greater love. Suffering and death are thereby elevated in unexpected ways. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life, said Jesus. And Christ invites us to understand his passion in this light and to enter into the way of this love. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life. It's something that everyone can understand almost instinctively, if they have not been completely dried up by selfishness. This coronavirus has been a time of great suffering, but also a time of such very great love. The coronavirus is only moderately contagious, but love is also highly contagious. As they grew up, many of the children of the New York firefighters of September 11th wanted too to become firefighters, to imitate their fathers in a service where all are prepared to give up one's life for another. The example of all those who are ready to give their lives in service to the needy is one of the most important lessons that we must take away from this coronavirus, this test of a generation. This love, this willingness to give of oneself so fully as to give your life in the service of another, in the service and love of Jesus Christ, is the precious soul of all the other lessons that we try to learn. Without it, the others are worth nothing.